Just realized that when John Cena started in WWE, I was 17. Now that he's retired, I'm 41. Old as fuck. She said, she'll take me anywhere, she'll take me anywhere, as long as she stays with me. She said, she'll take me anywhere, she'll take me anywhere, as long as I stay queen. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Hey, me Matt here, and as promised, well, obviously plans change, so yeah, it is what it is. Tomorrow night is John Cena's retirement match. Saturday night main event, so I thought, well, let's talk about the best and worst of John Cena. Now, it could be matches, it could be segments, it could be, basically anything. But I figure, why not start with the best? And I feel like John Cena has had a lot of the best moments in WWE. Now, he did start in WWF, the later part of it, in 2002, and obviously his match with Kurt Angle that started it all. And the funny thing is that you look at the beginning of SmackDown, and you have McMahon in the ring with a lot of the wrestlers, the men and the women that were on the apron, and yeah, it was actually pretty cool for him to start talking about this ruthless aggression thing. And I thought that was, one of the more interesting things was to have that mean something. We were just a year out of the Attitude Era. Let's bring something up. So, yeah, we have Kurt Angle coming out. Vince introduces him, he comes out. He has the wig with the wrestling headgear on and just shaved his head. Well, actually it was Edge he had a match with. And shaved his head. And Vince brings him out. And yeah, takes off the wig. And he's like, I need a challenger. I want to have a match with somebody back there, somebody that is worthy. And out comes John Cena, a fresh-faced John Cena. Now, here's a guy who just came up from OVW. He has wrestled a lot of dark matches in WWF. Like I said, the later part, you had him with a young Bryan Danielson, actually. So yeah, he was on Velocity quite a bit too. But I remember this like, I taped it, and I remember seeing this guy, and I remember thinking, wow, like, somebody new. Somebody that, and I'm not kidding, will carry the company eventually. So they have the match, and, like, John Cena was very close. He could hang with the boys. He had the match with Kurt Angle. And yeah, you kind of thought he was going to win. But obviously, that never happened, and Kurt beat him. And then Kurt goes to leave. John invites him back for another round, but Kurt leaves. And of course, afterwards, an endorsement backstage from The Undertaker, which is pretty damn cool. I mean, Taker was at his big evil stage. He was the WWE champion. So, and also, you know, one of the guys that carried the company. So to be endorsed by him, it's like, that's pretty cool. And it was one of those things too where you didn't know how far he was going to go. And speaking of Undertaker, like the matches that he had with The Undertaker in 2002, like he came back as the rapper gimmick. He had Paul Buchanan with him, or I can't remember the guy's name that he went by, but anyways, yeah, Paul Buchanan was with him, and B-Boy, I think that's what it was. So yeah, John Cena and Undertaker had some very stellar matches, and again, it proved that as new as John was, he could still hang with the boys. Another good match, another good feud that John did have was with Eddie Guerrero, and we talked about Kyle and I. The match that John and Eddie had, a very unique match, a parking lot brawl, which I thought was fantastic. They messed each other up on the cars, and yeah, it was very entertaining. At the time, I knew that was something special, but it was one of those things too where it was like, it was very cool to see, and I think they should have had more of those. But you know, John and Eddie had some other good matches too. You know, you talk of The Undertaker, you know, go all the way back to 2018. WrestleMania 34. Well, that was... I'd much rather look at the matches in 2002, to be honest, but... And so, there's that. I can't talk about a good John Cena feud without Edge, Adam Copeland. And I mean, look at a guy that beat John in Boston at SummerSlam, and it goes all the way to Toronto at the Air Canada Centre in Unforgiven. And a match like that, like, that show alone was one of the best shows of 2006, if you're not including WrestleMania. In fact, I will say 2006 might have been the last time WWE can go that extreme, but I could be wrong on that. Those matches were incredible. John and Adam had a lot of chemistry, and I feel like, yeah, it was awesome just to see those two guys go at it. And they haven't had it then for, I believe, 2 more years. I specifically remember them having a feud in 2018. So I think that these guys had one of the best feuds. Another Canadian, if you want to say that had a very good feud with John was Chris Jericho. And it all started, in my opinion, you look at Chris Jericho doing the highlight reel. And this was when the draft was happening in 2005, and John Cena was on SmackDown as the WWE Champion. They had Batista, who was on Raw. So, you have the highlight reel. And John was the surprise. And you could see it on Chris's face. Like, I legit thought that he didn't know about it. I don't know how many people knew that John Cena was going to show up. But, yeah, that was cool. And, you know, they had a lot of good matches as well. And like I said, even when John wore the colorful shorts, and, you know, before the whole rap gimmick happened, you know, he had some dark matches, or matches in general, with Chris Jericho, which I don't remember. I wish I did. That's why that's a little bit foggy. But there was a point where you had Chris Jericho perform with Fozzy, and then John Cena did his own rap gimmick. That was the thing that really impressed me as well, because this was before John became an actor, or started acting in WWE films, and he was a fan of hip-hop, and the infamous story where Stephanie overheard him spit rhymes on a bus. And so, yeah, basically, she decided to have him do that. And that kind of reinvented his career for the better. And, yeah, back then it was a bit risky, you know, but it was pretty cool as well. You go on to a feud where John got his first WWE break as a champion. Big Show. And yeah, these two guys have had some classic wars as well. But one that really will stand out, WrestleMania 20. You've got John Cena coming out, and it's like, okay, let's go all the way back to Survivor Series 2003, where it's him and Benoit who win the match for their team and whatever. And it's like, I think it was that point where I thought, okay, this kid's going somewhere. And I'm not even, I'm a few years younger than John. And I thought, okay, this kid's gonna go somewhere. He's gonna be the next guy to carry the company. And I'm not even sure why I thought that, but that was accurate. We have John Cena taking on the Big Show for the United States Championship. And yeah, that was an awesome match too. There was no way I thought that Big Show was gonna lose. A 7-foot guy like that, 700, well, whatever, 7 feet tall, 500 pounds, didn't think he was gonna lose to John Cena, but John Cena won the US title and showed his feat of strength, lifting the Big Show up for an AA, which I thought was pretty cool. And so, there it is. Wins the US title, comes out the next night with the spinner. And I thought, okay, that's unique. You know, John Cena had the spinner belt Okay. Had it for a while. Lost it to Carlito on my birthday, I believe that was. On Raw. And so, there it is. The next year, have another very good feud with JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield. John became a heel, distancing himself from the Acolytes, APA, and that was a few months earlier. And so this was interesting. Cut his hair, wore a cowboy hat, built himself from Wall Street. So there it is. Won the WWE title from Eddie. And yeah, carried it very well. I had the cabinet, Orlando Jordan, Duck and Danny Basham, Jillian Hall. So that was cool to see that. It was unique as well. So WrestleMania 21, and you had John Cena go over, becoming WWE Champion for the first time. And of course the next night on Raw, debuting the spinner belt. But we're not talking about the worst yet, so... Of course, there's matches with Randy Orton. I would put that on the worst list. But I also did enjoy it. I thought, these two guys were fairly new. 2002, 2003. And Randy Orton, of course, the son of Cowboy Bob Orton, the grandson of Bob Orton Sr. And those two guys, I believed, were going to carry the company. Actually, more so John. But I also thought, too, that they should have a match. And the first two matches were pretty cool. But then it kept going on and 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 on. It was like a feud that lasted a couple of years. And for some reason, that bothered me because it was like you had no other talent. Like no other opponents for these two guys. Don't get me wrong, I thought they were good matches, but at the time it was like, why do you keep pairing those two up together? There's that. I guess the last feud that I do want to talk about, though, is Brock Lesnar. And the fact that Brock Lesnar and John Cena had a good feud in the beginning of John's WWE run. But that carried on to 2012, where it was, And then more than recently, it felt like, I don't know, it was just the way it was. I think the earlier feud was much better, but alright, so I guess we could talk about the worst, and what better way to start. And really, it's really no one's fault. Like, I feel it was just bad timing. WrestleMania 27. And first of all, I got my dad to get it on pay-per-view. Not sure how much it was at the time, but yeah. I mean, I didn't like it. I almost turned it off the first couple minutes of it because I thought, this reminds me of a different version of Raw. But anyways, Yeah, this match was like, okay, I felt bad for Mike because the spot they did where he hit his head on the concrete on the other end of the barricade and then had to be carried through the match. Like, good for John for doing that, by the way. You know, I feel like that was a good way to, like, be a good leader and of sorts. And at the time, really had no idea that Mike was concussed. So, yeah, he won the match with the help of The Rock. And, you know, there it is. Really, I think that's when people should have gotten a lot of respect for him, because it was like, this kid can go, even in shit's serious, and which it was. That was a very scary thing, looking back. But yeah, Miz retained. But I hated that WrestleMania. It wasn't the worst. I mean, I'm sure there was worse. But there it is. We talk about The Rock. It's a nitpick for me because it was supposed to be once in a lifetime. WrestleMania 28 was once in a lifetime, and okay, you put it in a main event. Cool, whatever. So the next night they had a face-to-face, and they had to restart the damn feud! Like, okay, Dwayne Johnson and John Cena had real heat with each other. There was a point where The Rock did the whole Fury Pebbles thing. And then, you know, you got John Cena who mocked The Rock because he put ink, his lines, on his wrist. And it was like, that was real heat. And, you know, yeah, John Cena basically, Dwayne was right. Like, there was a point to what he was saying. Because John did movies. John did movies, and that was, you know, to say that, hey, you love WWE so much and then you leave. Okay. But then John did the same thing. So I could say he's a hypocrite, but he understood. And then, you know, you look at the next year. You had CM Punk and Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 28. That shut up! Main evented. I can understand why it didn't, because John Cena versus The Rock. Once in a lifetime. Because WrestleMania 29, you have CM Punk versus The Undertaker. Very good feud. Again, two guys that didn't like each other very much. Different opinions. Living Color playing CM Punk to the ring for the first time. Undertaker having a good entrance. That was a good match. Told a good story. Once again, John Cena and CM Punk has to main event WrestleMania. But I will say this, because that just kind of slipped my mind. The Rock was the WWF champion. The WWE champion. Okay, so scratch the whole Undertaker CM Punk main event. That would have been cool, but anyways, yeah, so there's that. John Cena basically mocks the Rock bottom. He goes to the rope. The Rock gets up. John remembers from last year, gives him the A, and pins him. Not only pins him, but The Rock is holding his hand up and, going like this. But his head's down. You're representing somebody. Yeah, you lost. But show some fucking dignity. I don't know. Yeah, obviously it wasn't my favorite. Like, did they have good segments? Yeah, for sure. But to say once in a lifetime, just to do it again, why? So, okay. Another feud that kind of wasn't my favorite, and yes, at the time, yeah. The fact that I didn't really have respect or like for this guy either, but yeah, John Cena versus Shawn Michaels. And, Shawn Michaels being Mr. WrestleMania, having a match for the WWE title, which, honestly, as much as I didn't like Shawn, I felt like could have won a WWE title. But, it is what it is. It's not so much the WrestleMania match, it's the fact that somehow they won the tag team titles on Raw, and it's like, that is the stupidest thing ever, because you did that with Undertaker and Steve Austin, and I believe they were feuding, but why? And let's not forget Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Like, that, to me, was stupid. But, whatever. John Cena won and retained the title. Wanted to shake Shawn's hand, but Shawn just walked off. There's a story where Shawn Michaels was pissed off because John Cena missed a move, or whatever it was. I have no idea. I heard something happened, and that's why it ended the way it did. Here's, another thing that kind of pisses me off, and I talk about it a lot, but John Cena's feud with Seth Rollins, I think would have been good if only one title was on the line, in my opinion. So here it is. You have John Cena, who was the US champion. You got Seth Rollins, who was the WWE champion. By the way, they still kept that fucking spinner belt. Whatever. See, that's the one thing I hated. I hated the fact that when John Cena lost the US title, it went right back to the original. But when John lost the WWE title, it stayed the spinner belt for a good part of a long time. So it's like, wow. Actually, I think it was 10 years. Well, no, it wasn't. It's probably 9 years. Doesn't matter. The fact is, it happened. So, basically, where the hell was I going with that? Oh yeah, the feud where it was SummerSlam, you were gonna have title versus title. Not to mention the fact that you got Jon Stewart, who was the star of the Daily Show. He did this thing where he was with John Cena, then SummerSlam comes out, he hauls ass to the ring, and he's got a chair with him. And the stupidest acting, and it's not, I don't know whose fault it was, but he lately hits John Cena in the gut, which gives Seth the curb stomp that has him win the match. So that happened. And another thing is too is that it didn't need to happen. Like, why? Like, seriously, what was the point? I mean, that year alone, actually a few years, because you had the world title and the WWE title become one, which was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then you had this. So that happened. It was just like, yeah. I mean, John Cena had a hell of a career. And there is like maybe two opponents, two rivals that I forgot to mention. Honorable mentions, I'll say. John Cena versus Triple H. And these two had a very good feud. And I believe that, yeah, once again, they had that stupid spinning belt. That's the only thing I would have changed, but it is what it is. But they've had some very good matches. They had some good three-way matches. I mean, John Cena, Triple H, and The Big Show, that was awesome. You want to throw in another good rival? Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt 2014 was okay. It was hokey, but I kind of expected that. And then, of course, the 2020 feud, which wasn't really a feud, more or less it was a cinematic match that really stole the show, in my opinion. Two matches that stole WrestleMania 36. Bray Wyatt, John Cena, and then, of course, AJ Styles and Undertaker, but I digress. It was what it was. And John really sold it. As hokey as it was, and 2014, he really sold it. Out of all the ups and downs, yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, John, I felt was pushed at the time, and he was. And it got to a point where John Cena and, you know, the audience, it was always John Cena coming up to, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Like John Cena, when they went PG, decided to take away the rapper gimmick because it was naughty, whatever, you know. So he decided to change it up, which is fine. But then you have the old school crowd, or the hardcore wrestling crowd, 18 to 35, whatever, that booed him. Booed him out of the building. And I feel like that was a shame because I understand. Like, I didn't hate John Cena. I didn't dislike him, but I was like, okay, something is wrong, and he's being force-fed down people's throats. But I will say this, and I probably said this before, but John Cena was what Lex Luger should have been in 1994. Think about that. So I did two best matches, and we'll throw this in there too. Because I know David Otunga has his own YouTube channel, and I know Ray Barrett has talked about it too, but we'll talk about John Cena burying the Nexus. Now, I had said this before, I feel like John Cena burying is kind of a strong word, yes. Maybe the Nexus at the time should have gone over. And Chris Jericho and Edge were like, yeah, he should go, they should go over. But, you know, John was the leader at the time. I don't know why I find that funny, but he was the leader at the time, so what he wanted to do was fine. So he basically beat them. It was an okay match. I didn't really watch it, but it was like, holy shit, you know? Like, he got injured outside, but he came back in and finished the job like nothing happened. David Otunga and him were Raw Tag Team Champions. Now watch David's video, because he gets a lot off his chest. But, you know, people talk a lot of shit. Like, I know Alex Riley had a lot to say on the Chris Van Vliet show. And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying you don't know. And I'm watching John at the Pat McAfee show tonight. I felt like, yeah, you know what? He owned up to... he basically said what I like to say. People change. People can change over the years. He's not the same John Cena he was in 2010 or 2006. I believe people can change. And before I go, I'll throw one more best honorable mention. I know that was all over the place. I just thought of it now. The feud of John Cena and CM Punk. Well, the fact that CM Punk became the leader of the Nexus, it was almost like, okay, that's interesting. It didn't last very long, but John Cena and CM Punk had a very good feud. Of course, the double title thing that happened where CM Punk didn't lose the title, but John Cena won it in the tournament they had, unfortunately beating Rey Mysterio. So it was like, okay, then CM Punk comes out. They had a very good match in Chicago at Money in the Bank, very infamous match. But that wasn't enough. Like, you saw a few other good matches that these two have had. Like the one for the Raw anniversary. That was stellar. And then, more recently, and yeah, you had the Last Time Is Now match. And that was fun. In Saudi Arabia. But also, they wrestled a little bit at the Elimination Chamber. So, I mean, John Cena has had a stellar career. Whether his politics got in the way or not, I can't hold that, you know. I think there's a lot of wrestlers that basically try to push themselves and things like that. But, you know, there's a lot of interviews that you should watch because I can't do it justice. But anyways, this has been another video. Congratulations, John, on your retirement. Tomorrow night will be emotional, but you know what? You've earned it. Obviously, you are, whether you like it or not, going to be one of the best wrestlers. And there it is. So, for me, Matt, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
So you know that them cutting WCW was a long time coming. I don't think that's the case at all. If you look at some of this earlier interviews,